Welcome to the Raging Hardham Podcast. We're here to get raw and real and talk about these fucking feelings. And if you got kiddos in the car, you probably want to not. If you guys would share these episodes with people you think that might like them or people that would hate them, because hate mail's funny too. Share these videos. That's the only way we can grow and reach a wider range of listeners and viewers on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. But today we have a special guest. He has a podcast. His name is Jason Minter.
Yep.
And he is a gay parent. So many guys, gals, people in our community really are interested in being parents, but don't quite know where to start. And I thought I'd tell you how we got started. How we got started is if we started collecting. Well, you did start collecting them. I only got one, and I was like, this is a perfect one. But yeah, but you have grandkids now. Like, you're building up real collection.
We do have a collection of kids. So I'm Jason. I have my own podcast called A Guide to Poor Parenting. We're on all the platforms.
Called what again?
A Guide to Poor Parenting.
And what do you do on your podcast?
We have a few drinks and talk shit about our kids.
Yeah.
You came on a couple of weeks ago, and your episode will launch in about 3 weeks, I think.
It was really fun. Like, we talked about parent stuff and
how hard it is.
Did shots, and
yeah.
So that was fun. So how did you, like, what made you start the podcast? Like, what was your inspiration?
So my best friend and I, during the pandemic, were going insane because we were just like, what are we going to do with these kids? They're driving us nuts. And so I was like listening to a lot of podcasts, and I was like, well, Jennifer, would you be interested in doing this? She's like, yeah, just don't ever put me on video. I'm like, okay, we can do that.
And Jennifer is
my beautiful co-host, Jennifer Franson. She adopted her son out of foster care after we got our custody of our granddaughter.
And she's a lesbian?
No, she's straight.
Oh.
She looks like a lesbian, and she knows she looks like a lesbian.
Well, I didn't say that.
Oh, she admits it. She knows this.
I totally got busted, like judging somebody. So you guys started this in the pandemic. The podcasts are really funny.
Well, thank you. Parenting, as all parents, not just gay parents, know, it's hard. And, you know, as much as you love your kids, half the time you also want to murder them. So I was like, I bet we could find tons of topics to talk about and, you know, things to complain about and just be a little cathartic and, you know, expose all our kids' funny stories.
Because hosting a podcast, like, topics and conversations are the easiest thing to come up with.
Yeah. Well, I will say...
I'm lying. Like,
well,
content creation is, it's a trap. Like, you have those first great ideas in the beginning, and then you're like, we did that.
Yeah.
We fucking did all of that.
We are Wednesday will be our 75th episide released.
Oh, wow.
So we're going on 2 years now, but we started in 2022 and we got, I would say we got through our first season of about 18 episodes, and then I started having hip problems, and I had to have my left hip replaced. And then about a year later, I had my second hip replaced. So we took about a year off just because it was too much. And then we started back up, and we always structure it. So at first we structured it so that it was me and Jennifer talking about a topic, parenting, like discipline, school, that kind of stuff. And then we would alternate with a guest. We would have a friend come on and talk, you know, we'll try and find people that were fun to talk to, like you, and talk about parenting and their journey through parenthood. In the second season, we started doing 2 solo shows for every interview we did. But then we started realizing real quick, we're starting to have to repeat topics because, you know, even though the material changes, it's like... You know, I don't know what else to talk about besides, you know, our kids doing crappy in school and stealing stuff from us. So we started interweaving some Reddit posts in there from the parenting subreddit and the adoption subreddit, since Jennifer and I both adopted parents. So that's what we're doing now. We're just doing like one topic discussion about stuff that's going on with the kids. And, I think our last one was the cruise we all went on together back in June. And then I think our next topic episode will actually be about isolation and how, even though you are surrounded by your kids and your loved ones, parenting can be kind of isolating. You lose your friends.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're a gay person.
How old were your children when they came to live with you?
Do you want me to start from the beginning? Talk about that?
Let's go even further back than that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jason as a little boy. Like, where did you grow up?
So I'm a Texan by birth. I was born in Houston, and then when I was about 3, we moved to Austin. And I grew up in Austin until I was 18. Graduated from a small Baptist high school in Austin called Hyde Park Baptist. Go Panther.
What about your parents? What are they? Like, you lived in Austin. That's not a very conservative town. Like, Willie Nelson's from there.
No, it's not conservative, but I will say it is.
Weird is celebrated in Austin.
It was still the 90s though when I was growing up, so it wasn't like. So my parents are both were engineers. Dad was an electrical engineer. Mom was a software developer. So, they were, and Dad would, for all his make me go to church. He was definitely an atheist. I think he just did it for Mom. Mom had a harder time with me coming out when I came out at like 17. But yeah, it took a long time for them to get comfortable, but they are now, well, Dad died about 10 years ago, but they were comfortable by the time he passed, and like they met. Mom was at my wedding, and Dad would have been had he still been alive. And
were you closer to your dad than your mom, or?
No, Dad, like, I love my father and I respect him, but he was just kind of like a socially quiet, distant person.
Engineer.
Yeah.
He was
an engineer. I mean, like, I'm a software developer, but I'm definitely more after my mom. Dad was just a quiet guy, just, introspective, didn't have a ton of friends beyond his own circle. So.
Like, we live in a city that has the highest per capita rate of engineers than anywhere, which means we also probably have the highest rate of
autism.
Yeah. So what's it like to grow up with 2 autistic parents?
Dad definitely probably was. Mom, I don't think Mom is. She grew up, pretty religious, I would say. Not like crazy, but religious.
She grew up there in Texas?
Mm-hmm. We're all from Texas. And then Mom was the churchgoer, but I think it was more like, that's what she grew up with. I'm not so sure she believes that anymore, but because she loves me and she loves my family and my husband and my kids. So I think it was a journey for her, but it was hard because that's all she ever knew.
Well, and you grow up believing,
yeah,
like, this is not just socially bad, but this is like eternal damnation. Like, this is like burn in hell.
Yeah.
And, now as a parent, and we've talked about that like with several people on here, there's a shift that happens when you become a parent. And there's a real shift that happens when you become your parents' age that you remember them well.
Yeah.
Like, you see their humanity, you seem to forgive a lot of their their human flaws because you realize, like, you're that fucking person now. Like, you're human and this age trying to figure shit out. So how old were you when you came out of the closet?
I was 17. And I was at a private Baptist school. I was going there because I don't know.
All boys school?
No, I was going there.
Oh.
It was just a regular school, but it was not gender specific. I was going there because I was getting bullied for being a little fag because I was so gay. I mean, I don't know what my parents thought it would be a good idea to send me to this little private school because I was so flaming. I was such a little queer kid.
Well, I mean, they were paying those kids to bully you to try to make you straight. And then they thought, well, at least the church will scare him with hell.
Maybe. I don't know.
It was an act of loving kindness from your mom.
Well, I know I bullied in public school and like a little bit of fighting. But I was like, I don't know why they thought it'd be a good idea to send me to a private Baptist school. I was such a fruity little kid.
Like, what was the bullying like?
Nothing even all that bad. I got into one fight. like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, got in one little fight. And
Mm.
I got to live with my auntie and uncle in Bel-Air. No, I don't know. Like, it was one fight in junior high, and my parents were like, "Oh, we're going to send you to a private school." So,
But they were worried it was going to continue.
I guess. I don't know.
And then you went to college after that.
Yeah. So after I graduated high school, mom and dad and I all moved to Denver because they were, for the people who live here in Huntsville, they were defense contractors. So they worked for Lockheed Martin and one of the big defense contractors in the world. And they moved to Denver or I went with them, but I was really unhappy. So I was like, I want to go back to Austin and go to school. So I went to Texas State, which is just south of Austin in San Marcos. And I went down there, graduated college, got my computer science degree. But I was really unhappy because I was like, I feel like I'm a creative person and I wanted to create stuff. So I actually minored in theater arts. So had I to do it over again, I think I might have gone into costuming.
Oh yeah, that would be like a gay wet dream.
Oh yeah, but live and learn, and so here we are. But
do you do costuming now?
I sew. I quilt a lot. Get the energy to actually do that kind of shit with all my other projects. But yeah, like I'm sewing Kalia skirt right now. I still have a dream of doing some drag as part of a comedy. Stand-up comedy because I really enjoy that, but I get sidetracked easily and I love starting projects and I never finish them. So
do you do stand-up comedy now?
I have done it in the past. I've done a few 5-minute sets.
Tell a joke.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
My favorite one is I'm so worried about my granddaughter getting pregnant that I'm going to ensure she never sees a penis in real life. I'm going to teach her how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's like a smart, funny joke. I grew up redneck and country. Like, you gotta like get it to sauerkraut and weenies for me. Like, so you came out. How long have you and your husband been together?
Well, let me go back a little further. So I moved to Huntsville in 2009 after I did I left my PhD program in statistics, and then came out here and I dated someone for a little while. We broke up, and then I met Zane in 2012, and we were dating for 2 years, and we got married in 2015. So we're gonna have our 10 years.
Now, you met him here? He was already in Huntsville.
He's a Huntsville native. He was born in Huntsville Hospital Women and Children's Unit. And
we didn't have that unit back then.
Yeah, it was hospital at the time.
And it was really like not a big hospital.
Yeah.
It's so funny to drive downtown now and see the hospital has expanded, and yeah, there was none of that there.
And his whole family, like his mom and dad were both teachers, and his mom retired as a teacher, so we can't go anywhere out in Limestone County without someone like, "Oh, we're miserable. I remember you." Jesus Christ!
Oh, that's funny.
She's her whole family I adore. So
are they very accepting? And
yeah, his mom and dad both came, like they're not married anymore, but his mom and his dad and stepmom came to the wedding, and his sister couldn't make it, but she wanted to come. But
oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Do your parents or your mom get along with his parents?
Yes, they all love each other. I mean, I wouldn't say they're close friends, but my mom and his mom see each other pretty regular because we have them at our house all the time for dinner. So, and we do see his dad and stepmom a bit because they're really close to where you live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then your mom is here still?
Yeah, she moved out here 2 years ago. When did she move? She moved I think it was about 2 years ago, in 22. She had, she's 82 now, and she was 80 at the time, and she was really worried about being able to take care of herself, and, she lives with my brother, but he's kind of irresponsible, and is, like, she still supports him at 82, so it's like she's like, I need to be near you, because I'm the only one that's, stable, and
she's 80. So your parents were older also.
She was 35 when she had me, and Dad was 37.
Which was, like, that wasn't...
No, in 77, that was old.
Yeah, my mom was 21 with 4 kids, so...
I mean, my aunt, who is my mom's same age, she had her daughter at 40, so my cousin is...
Which now I think that's kind of the norm. Like, at least 30 now. Like, you know, it's rare you.
And I bet that's why you're seeing autism rates go up, because everybody's having these babies so much later in life.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, we are seeing the rates go, or we're just recognizing, we're recognizing the spectrum now. And, you know, my son is on the spectrum, and I don't know that we would have recognized it.
Yeah, you would have just called him off
years ago, or just, yeah, like he would have just had
quirky character.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing, but even with my ADD, it falls under that spectrum for some doctors now. How long were you guys married when you decided, hey, let's be dads?
We always knew we wanted to be parents, or well, especially me, and I think I'm the driving force behind our parenthood. But I always knew I wanted to be a parent, and Zane was happy to go along with it. When we first started the process, we actually wanted to go through surrogacy. So there's a organization called Men Having Babies, and they organize conferences where they kind of discuss it, and you can meet vendors for like fertility clinics and.
I thought you meant vendors like vaginas.
Yeah. No, you can't. Like they have surrogacy.
Is that expensive?
To that second. So we were the very first meeting they had. They're like, just so y'all are aware, the average cost for surrogacy in the United States is $125,000. And that was back in 2016, I think.
Did you contemplate it after they told you that? Like, were you like,
yes,
well,
we did. But I was like, Zane, we can do this. We could technically afford it, but it was like, this is it's like a mortgage on.
Can you get a loan for that?
You can, but it's not like you don't do it all at once, because most of it's the IVF, and then you have to pay the surrogate, and then there's all these medical costs. So it's not just like, here's $125,000 to go to one thing. It's like a bunch of things that add up over time. But we talked about it, and I was like, we could probably afford this, but it's like, we're not going on any vacations. This is ever. Because that was like my mortgage at the time was $125,000. So I'm like, this is, we're basically doubling my mortgage.
That is like a designer kid.
Yeah. And that's if everything goes correct.
Yeah.
And,
I have friends that have done it, and they literally have been able to choose the sex beforehand. I have a friend that's a doctor, and he and his partner, they chose the sex. Like, it was really strange, like the filtering they got to do for
it's a little bit like Gattaca.
Which little jizz and egg that's kind of crazy. I looked into some of it. I mean, I just always knew I was going to do it, and, I did it.
Yeah.
With a friend. We were like, hey, let's take this turkey baster and see what it'll do. And yeah, one time. You tried something one time, and he's 19 now.
I don't know that I could have been a surrogate, or could have been a donor. I actually had a lesbian friend ask me, and she had the sperm tested, and my dad had the same problem with low sperm count, so I don't know that I could have ever been a biological father, but
oh wow,
whatever.
Or porn. I think they like it to be pretty high too.
What?
And porn, like, I mean,
sperm count has nothing to do with your seminoles.
Oh, it doesn't? Told you I was redneck. So even when they like shoot the wall, like that's
no,
there could be no babies in that.
Because if you had a vasectomy, it's not like you're not going to shoot.
Oh, I never been with a guy with a vasectomy. What happens?
Well, so all they do is snip. So there's a tube connecting your testes to your penis called the vas deferens. I think this is how it works. But when you snip that tube, it stops the sperm from getting into the seminal fluid. The cum is just snot, basically. That's all it is.
I would never eat snot.
Shall I go get your husband a napkin?
Oh my God, that's a terrible. Now
it's a mucus.
At my age and the rest of my life, I'm going to be like, that's snot.
I mean, it really is just a mucus that your body produces as a delivery package for the sperm.
So whose husband have you been sleeping with that had a vasectomy to know this?
No one's. It's just like...
Oh, okay. So you've never seen somebody with a vasectomy.
I've known people who have vasectomies.
And you've seen them ejaculate.
No, but I also know that the sperm is not like when you come, it's not like 100% semen. It's a mucus.
I may be allegedly. allegedly this is the truth what he's talking about. So you guys just, I'm country.
Apparently.
I just thought like,
Oh. So, yeah, you're...
I thought it was like when you had a cow and you were like, I don't want this cow fucking nothing else.
That's castration. So if you castrate the bull, then you cut off its testosterone and it's not going to fuck anything anymore. So if I castrated myself, I wouldn't get horny and fuck anything.
I should have studied this before we talked about it. I feel stupid.
You're pretty. That's all that matters.
Oh.
So yes, back to taking my husband's loads. So we looked into surrogacy, and then I was like, well, that's, a mortgage payment. And so we looked into
a mortgage. That's the house. Oh, I thought you were talking about just a payment.
No,
yeah. Why am I stupid today? Anyways, so you decided to go the route of
adoption. And then
did y'all try to do like an adoption?
Infant adoption?
Yeah.
We did look into that. So if surrogacy is buying a house, then infant adoption is buying a brand new car, because it's about anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000. And at the time we could have afforded it, but I was like, I'm a cheap bitch.
But it's more guaranteed than surrogacy because, no, I mean, you still have to pay even if they don't bring you a baby?
You could drop all this money into it, and then the birth mother could change her mind at the last second.
But does she get to keep the money, or does the organization have it so you can pick a different baby?
It's to nonprofit that does your home study and all the shit.
Nonprofit.
So you end up like you pay like $20,000 to the adoption agency, and then you end up paying a lot of medical bills for the mom. And if mom loses the baby or mom decides to keep the baby, which is completely her right, you are out that money and you have to start over again.
Which is why surrogacy, because with surrogacy, it's not her baby.
If you're doing what's called a gestational surrogacy, where it's a different egg from the person carrying it or gestating it, then it's a different egg and a different sperm, so she has no biological connection to it, so she cannot claim it. Now, if she did what like you and your baby mama did, where it's like you just asked a friend to pop a baby out for you, then she has some rights to it.
Yes.
So,
and we were young, so we didn't sign anything, we didn't do anything. We just were like, hey, let's try this, and then we did, and it worked. Like one time. First time. And
now you got a sweet baby.
I know. So I must not be low sperm count.
No.
I don't know. I was young. So it's probably different today. My hairline is. And then how was the process of going through, like, what do you call it? State adoption or?
So when we decided we weren't going to do infant adoption, we just talked about either doing foster care or what's called adoption through foster care. So when you go through the state, you can either foster with the hope of adoption, but as with all foster care, the purpose of being a foster parent is to be a placeholder until the parents...
Reunification.
Yeah, until reunification happens. But Zane he's like, I don't think I can give up a child. If I get my heart set on this and I love the child, I'm not going to be able to give it up. I don't know if you'd feel the same way anymore, but...
Have you guys fostered some also?
No, we've never truly fostered anybody. So if you don't do foster, you do what's called... There's a term for it, I can't remember. But it basically means you are going to foster a child with the express purpose of adopting it. So you only get kids whose parental rights have been terminated. So you don't get any of the kids who are like, oh, they may reunify, they may not. You get the kids where, okay, mom and dad are deemed unfit, parental rights have been terminated. The state of Alabama is their parent legally. And those are the ones that there's no risk of.
Can you get a baby, do an adoption?
Through the way we did it, it is incredibly unlikely to get a baby because the process to terminate parental rights takes so long, and the desire to adopt a baby is pretty high. and they were quite, so most people who foster infants end up adopting them. So like if we had done foster care and gotten infants, we probably would have had an infant. But we decided to go, Zane didn't feel like he could do it. He couldn't like raise a baby and then give it up. So we decided to do the ones who had already had their parental rights terminated.
Yeah.
And if you go with the kids that had their parental rights terminated, you actually get some state support. So you'll get a subsidy, and they get Medicaid until they're out of high school. So you don't have to put them on your insurance, and you get some support from the state.
Oh, that's cool. Like monthly allowance or...
And in the state at the time, it was like $700.
But they also, if they're of a certain age, they continue to get that, right?
Up until 19, and it goes to the parents, not the kids.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I know that's really sad, because you see these stories of kids from the system, foster children, and then the funds stop. And there's really like a limited bridge to get these kids into the real world.
Oh, in Alabama, especially, because on that point, we ended up adopting a 17-year-old boy. It was close to aging out, because in Alabama you age out at 19. But he didn't have any behavioral problems. He had no diagnoses. Like he wasn't like lighting cats and dogs on fire. He wasn't molesting his step siblings or anything like that. So he wasn't violent. He wasn't doing great in school, but I was like, well, we could deal with that. So we ended up adopting him, and it worked out great. We did have some, late teenage problems, but what child doesn't have problems?
How long ago was it that you adopted him? Your first one was him?
Yeah, our first child was 17. He was 17. We adopted him in 2017.
Okay.
So,
and
then a year later, so he was the youngest of 7 biological children to his mother. Mom never had any custody of any of them. She was on drugs and a prostitute, so she just never had custody of any of them. The youngest two, my son and his next eldest sister, Kishanalyn, they did have the same father, and they were raised by the same adoptive family. But they were an older family, and the mother had died when Justin was 7, and the father was at 13. When Justin was 13, his father started developing dementia. And Justin's sister, Kiki, her name's Kishana, but we call her Kiki, she got pregnant at 16 in high school. And because she was an underage pregnancy, DHR is required to check in to make sure she's okay and the baby's doing all right. So they went to go to the house where they were living, and their father was really confused and showing signs of dementia and fell. And so they were like, this is not a good home. So they took the kids out of the house. Kiki had just had the baby, her eldest daughter, Kalia. And so they went to foster care. Kiki went to Coleman, Alabama, which is a god-awful town here in Alabama, where it's like the home of the KKK in Alabama. And she was in a single mother's home, basically, where they send foster kids who have children. They sent her and Kalia there, and Justin went to foster home, Opelika, out near Auburn.
Had they always been together before this point?
Yeah. Justin was 13 at the time they got taken out, and they had been raised together their whole lives.
Oh, wow.
So Justin was in a few different foster homes and group homes when we adopted him. Kiki was 19 when we adopted him, and then she aged out of foster care.
How did Justin respond to being adopted? Was he happy to be adopted, or had he just grown accustomed to this system that he lived in? And
so at that age, especially at 17, they can choose whether they get to be adopted. They have complete say whether or not they are going to be adopted or not. So he was happy to be adopted. He was happy to have a stable home. He was fine with us being gay. He's always been a quiet person. So he wasn't like effusive about anything, but he was happy to be adopted and have a stable home. And we weren't like super strict parents or anything like that. So I think he's always was happy to be adopted. And he had some queer family members of his own. So it wasn't like a completely new thing to him.
So what was the process like for somebody out there listening that they're like, maybe I could go this route. Maybe I could handle having an older child. I know I went through the process of foster to adopt, and it's kind of grueling.
Oh, it's awful.
And it's when I went through the process, I was with my ex, and I remember them telling us, I had clients in the salon that had gone through it, and they were like, this will either bring you so much closer to each other, or you're going to learn things about each other that you did not know, because it's going to
tear you apart.
It's going to go all the way down because they want to know about you, and you're also going to get a glimpse into this system that we have here in the U.S. And, you know, depending on what area you're from and what kind of support the foster children and the foster system has, it can be really scary and terrifying.
It can crush you. I have a friend, my co-host, she's going through a lot of pains with her adopted child because he's just like, the trauma that the kids have, it really fucks up their brains, and they just they don't know how to function sometimes in normal society. So they lash out and they do incredibly stupid things, or things that we would consider stupid, but they're just like reacting in their own trauma mind. So,
have you read the book Emotional Intelligence?
I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like how some of those coping skills that we learn, and even interpersonal skills and things like empathy, are developed at such a young age. And from the slightest thing, from a mom who stares at one child too much and doesn't connect with the second child, like with eye contact as much, and it changes the way they approach the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always felt like I was empathetic. I'd be like, oh, I can tell you what's going on in people. I was a fucking psychic. And, yeah, after reading that book, I realized, no, I was just traumatized. And this is this. Yeah. And so I had from the bullying growing up. So I'm sure you can relate to this. You become hyper aware of everybody in the room and how they're feeling, and not just how they're feeling, but you take it on as a responsibility to manage their emotions and their feelings, because you don't want things to get too loud or too out of control, because it makes you uncomfortable, and then you become a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. And really you just become manipulative to try to keep people in a good place and liking you, even if that means sacrificing who you are in order to get that.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine for these kids growing up in a system. Yeah. But
well, and even before the system, just especially if you have abusive parents,
yeah,
or you're neglected, it just really fucks up your brain in ways the underfunded system that Alabama provides is just not prepared to handle. Yeah. And then they throw these wild children with massive problems at unprepared parents.
You're a millennial, right?
No, I'm a Gen Xer.
Are you? How old are you?
I'm 47.
Oh, hell, we were all abused.
Well,
like, according to today's standards. Like,
I know, but not like foster kids.
No. It doesn't even compare. You know, I remember they did this thing in my foster to adopt class where they would turn off the lights and the whole room is in there, and then all of a sudden a door swings open to the room and it's black in there. And it was a night that we had all the judges and everybody there, like a panel discussion. And in comes this group of social workers with black garbage bags and start beating on our tables saying, grab everything you can get. You can only use this garbage bag. Like, if you want to keep it, like, you need to put it in this trash bag. We need to get out of here tonight. And they were sort of giving us a glimpse into these children's first night being put in the system, that a group of strangers shows up, beating on walls, demanding for you to grab the things that mean the most to you and put them in a garbage bag. Yeah. And then they take you to an office that you most likely spent that night. And, you know, who knew when they were going to find you a bed to sleep in, or a family that was willing to take you. And I can only imagine what that is like. What was the drive that made you want to be a parent so bad?
I've always been a giving person, I guess you would say. I've always felt like the purpose in life that I've found, the thing that I come back to all the time, is service to others.
Mm-hmm.
So I always knew I wanted to give back to the world and be a positive force in it. And I've always been pretty involved in youth stuff. Like when I was a teenager, I was involved in a gay youth support group in Austin. Still give money to them to this day. And I get calls from Austin because they're always like, who is this Alabama person giving us money for the last 15 years? And it's like, well, y'all helped me so much. And then I've been a mentor many times. I've taught a few times in my life, and I was a big brother and big sister volunteer. I was a mentor with them for my little brothers are 21 now. They'll turn 21 in November, and I got them when they were 8. So I've always been passionate about youth and helping kids. And so I didn't always know I wanted to be a parent, but I was like, I think that's what I want to do with my life and how I want to contribute to the world. And so that's the direction I chose. I will say, when you're talking about being a people pleaser and that kind of thing, I think a lot of that for me was, I saw a lot of the queer kids, like, were just very sensitive individuals.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one of the greatest things I've got going for me as a person in my own mental health is I have really good boundaries. So I am very capable of giving, but I know exactly when to stop. It's like, I'm like, I've given this, I'm comfortable here, I'm good. I don't mind saying no to things all the time.
I'm learning that. I'm getting to the good boundaries thing. I can
process.
I can remember, I can remember being mid-sex with someone when after I came out, thinking, I don't want to be here, but I don't want to upset them.
Now, mid-sex, I would probably finish, but I'd be like, whatever. But
be laying there grossed out, thinking, I don't want to hurt their feelings, though.
It's just courtesy, isn't it? Fall out like,
no, I think we all. I don't think my story is unique in the people pleasing and the shame. I think that is pretty sprinkled over our whole community of a certain age, that just being a little queer kid in this world, I don't care if your personality was the loud, funny guy like I tried to be, or the scared, quiet guy, we all held a secret inside of us that we were sure the world could see, but we would have never admitted to. And it made us question everybody around us. It made us question their motives. It made us question who we were. It made us change the basic things about ourselves.
Well, for safety reasons, because we were, we both grew up in the South. And it was a scary religious trauma that we had to be very careful, because we saw exactly how the fruity people were treated. So it was like, we got to be careful.
I was the fruity person. Like in my little school, like the bullying was bad. It was really bad. And I think back, it was crazy what they put me through. But I will say that's one of the things that led me to want to be a dad. Is I think when I set out and became a parent, I would venture to say my reasons were probably not the healthiest. Like, I wanted to connect with a person that was gonna love me no matter what, and that I could love another person with everything in me, like 100%, and it was not gonna stop. Because I grew up worried that if they ever found out who I really was, the love would end.
Yeah.
So nobody really loved me, is what I believed. And it took becoming a parent to really realize parenting was not what I fucking thought it was. I will say it's one of the hardest things in the world to do. Mm-hmm. And if everybody knew how hard it was, nobody would be a fucking parent. However, it's one of the most rewarding things in the world I've ever done. And if everybody knew how good that felt, everybody would become a parent. So it's like this fucked up club that you
Yeah.
You don't get to know the rules until you're in it. And then all the other people that are parents are like, see what I'm talking about, bitch.
Well, I mean, that's why
You think it's so easy.
I mean, that's why we started our podcast. Because
Yeah.
parenting is so goddamn hard. And we, you know, as much as you love your kids, sometimes you resent them. Sometimes you just want
Not me. That's why I stopped at one. My second one would have been fucking crazy. Like, my second one would have been a serial killer because this first one was so good.
Like, you need more exposure to more kids then, because, like, even, like, my little brothers, I love them, but sometimes they're just like, God damn it. I love you, but I resent the fuck out of you right now, too. So it's like, it's impossible not to have these complicated emotions and complicated feelings. And...
It is. And I hear what you're saying, but I still like to believe that I was just the best parent in the world. And I have produced the most incredible human being, and I made no mistakes. And if I could write a book on parenting, everybody's kids would be as good as mine. That's what I like to believe. But I'm old enough now that I realize I just fucking lucked up. Like, I lucked up. The kid was easy. Like, he's awesome, but never had behavior stuff.
Well, yeah, that's a big problem. Not problem, but that's a big reason right there. You never had behavioral problems.
Yeah. So I was like, I want 10 more.
Yeah, I'm sure you would if you didn't have those. But, like,
you know, my second one would be bad.
Yeah, your second would burn the fucking house down.
With me in it.
Yeah. I mean, our son, he was incredibly easy. Like, he had his problems. Like, he dropped out of high school. We tried our damnedest, but, he was 17 and he was so behind that he was going to graduate. He was 20, basically. And he's like, I just don't want to do it anymore. I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's, I worked with a kid that he was in and out of foster care. And he was like, oh, yeah, I went to high school till I was 20. His mom was on drugs.
Yep.
And he'd become a hairdresser. And he was like, yeah, she just made us go enough that they would let us stay so she could continue to get a check for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was like, I was 20 and in high school with kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's wild. I don't blame him.
Yeah. So, like, but, and he would steal from us on occasion. And then, we ended up getting, so back to my daughter. So his sister was 19, aged out of the foster care system. And because the case where the kid, my son and his sister, my kids, they grew up in Tuscaloosa. That's where the case originated from. She was in Coleman with her daughter, and the caseworker was like, I don't want her to drive out there. So they relocated her daughter, my granddaughter, to Tuscaloosa with a foster family. Because they're like, well, you've aged out of the system, but you're not stable enough to raise a daughter because you didn't have stable housing, you didn't have a stable job. And then they were like, oh, you're not making any effort to come see your daughter. And they're like, and she's like, I don't have a car. I have to walk to work every day.
And like,
So,
she was probably as stable as she had ever seen.
yeah. I mean, she gotten herself an apartment. She was working on getting a car. So she was trying, but, she makes, minimum fucking wage. So how is she supposed to do this with no help from the state and the social?
And she was being probably a better parent than she had ever had one be to her.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Well, no, her parents were pretty good. Like,
okay.
Yeah, there was no abuse. It was just he had dementia, so they had.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But the state was making starting the process of terminating her parental rights because they were like, "Oh, you're not making it."
And she was how old?
She was 19. Yeah. So it was. I was like, do you mind? I asked her.
And that's how you get babies in the system.
Seriously. Well, so I asked Kiki, I was like, do you want me to get involved and help you? And she's like, yes. So I started going to her court dates with her, and I started talking to her lawyer, the state appointed one, and it started turning around. But the social worker was god awful. It was the Kiki social worker, and Kalia's social worker, and it was all the same woman. She's the one who pulled them out of their parents' house. This bitch, when we adopted Justin, the day she dropped him off, she's like, are you sure you want to adopt him? He's not that great. She said that to us. And we're like, yeah, we want to adopt him.
Oh, wow.
And, I can't stand that woman.
What's her name?
Alicia. I don't know her last name. Cunt. I hate you. So she was basically trying to get Kalia away from her mom. And so I stepped in. I started going to and I asked one of the lawyers. I'm like, can we get custody of Kalia? We got, we're Justin. We got the uncle. Can we have custody? And they're like, no. When you adopted Justin, you severed his legal ties to his sister. I'm like, that's some fucking bullshit. So like, okay, so Justin has no legal ties to his sister or his niece anymore. She's like, correct. It's like, what if I adopted Kiki? His sister. She's like, well, then you would have a tie. So we went to the adoption lawyer we went to through Justin, and the state of Alabama was like, well, you're not related to her, you're not a step parent, and you're not a heterosexual couple, so you cannot adopt an adult in Alabama. If we were a straight couple, if we were a step parent, or if we were related to her somehow.
Even though you had her brother already.
Because by adopting him, we severed his legal tie to his sister, so we couldn't adopt her. So,
how do you sever ties with their siblings? I know losing your parental rights, but is there a paper you sign that says...
It's some bullshit I think they just came up with to keep us apart. But, so because they said that, I looked around at different states to see if you could adopt adults without residency requirements. In Florida, there's no residency requirements. So we went down to Destin. I talked to a lawyer down there and like, yeah, you can adopt her down here. So we drove down to Destin, filled out.
Which could be scary too, that you can adopt adults that aren't related to you. I mean, your situation, it makes perfect sense.
Well,
but...
you can't adopt it. It has to be by permission. They're adults.
Yeah.
I can't just adopt you for out of nowhere.
Why? Because I'm stupid and didn't know about. Because I didn't know about
semen,
pre-seminal fluid.
No, you can't adopt. Like, adult adoption is not about custody or anything. It's about heirs, basically. It's all. It's like if we adopt her as an adult, she becomes my legal heir.
Yeah.
So like she gets my lands and titles. But so we went down to Destin, we adopted her, and as soon as the paperwork made its way back to Alabama, the judge in the case was like, "Oh, you have a grandparent now. We're going to take Kalia out of foster care and give her to grandparents." And so they were like, "We're going to give you and they're going to give me and Kiki joint custody of Kalia." And so she's been with us for the last 5 years, and so we've been raising her. Mom still is making very little money. And
where's the mom living here?
Coleman. So we see her all the time. We have a good relationship. She comes up for Christmas. She's still like, I think,
and she still has joint custody.
Yeah, she could take Clea back anytime. Or if she asked us, I'd be like, here, you can take her back. I think what stops her is the money thing, because she's like, last year she made $17,000 a year, and that made her too wealthy to be on Medicare anymore. Medicaid.
With $17,000?
She was just over that limit.
It's so crazy the more you learn about.
Yeah, I mean, that's abject poverty wages.
So if somebody's listening right now and they are, if we haven't scared the shit out of them about trying to adopt or become parents, like, what would be the first step?
Okay, the first step, if you want to adopt the way that Zay and I did, you would contact, we're a nonprofit here in Alabama called Children Aid Society.
Called what again?
Children's Aid Society.
Okay.
And they have a program where they helped adopt the kids who had their parental rights terminated. So those kids include the older ones, so usually 8 and older, medically fragile, so like disabilities, or sibling groups. Any of those 3, they're specialized in getting those kids adopted. And so they host these classes you have to take. They used to be called TIPS. I think they're called GPS now. I'm not sure. But it's about 10 classes of about 2 hours each, over 10 weeks long. Then you do a home study with a PIP. I'm not sure what that stands for. It's like something professional, like some sort of social worker comes over, does a home study, and then you start. And this is a awful way of saying it, but it's the reality. You start shopping for kids. Like there's a heart gallery. There's a website called the Alabama Heart Gallery.
But you have to be a licensed foster and adoptive parent to see these kids?
To see the website, no. To make inquiries, yes. Like, they're not going to just hand out the kids information unless you are licensed. So we were licensed adoption placement assets. So like we could foster kids only if we were planning on adopting them. So like if it was a foster until reunification, we were not going to get those kids. It had to be kids that were already had their parental rights terminated. So once you get your home study done, you start looking for kids, and there's another website called adoptuskids.org. And that one I would recommend getting onto if you're in the process, because once you have your home study, they will give you kind of like a list of diagnoses. And they'll be like, okay, here's a little bit more information and list of diagnoses these kids have. So you can see if they're, murdering dogs or molesting their siblings.
If they put that in the file.
If they put that in the file.
Because we went through the whole process only to find out the social worker was leaving all the important stuff out.
Yeah.
Like, they presented a kid and I just wanted Grayson not to grow up alone.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, like we were about to adopt and found out the kid was sexually abusing kids in other homes he had been in, that he was threatening to cut people's heads off and just, little things. But I was just like, and that none of it was in the file. Yeah. But luckily, because of the business I owned, other people that had this child in their home was able to come to me and go, no, this is what really happened. I mean, he was presented to us as straight A student, plays 3 instruments, probably genius.
Connection, because you would not have found that out otherwise.
No. And it would have put my own child at risk of things that we could have never taken back. I mean, so it is a scary thing, although it's such a brave and noble thing. I think if somebody's going to foster and adopt these parents, you got to be in a good fucking place.
Yeah. In Alabama, there's a Children Aid Society. They have another sub-organization called APAC, which is the Alabama Pre and Post Adoption Coalition, I think is what it's called. But they provide a lot of support. They provide a free library. You can get books on like how to deal with trauma in children. You can go to conferences.
But there's no like mental health evaluation to become parents.
No.
That's messed up.
There's a financial evaluation. You have to prove you're financially able to do it, but there's no like checking to see if you're crazy. They do a background check, but that's about all you can do. But I mean, what would you check though? Like, I mean, would you disqualify someone for having depression or like,
I don't know. You put me in the room with somebody for 2 hours one-on-one. I can probably tell you if that person's,
Couldn't you tell me what was it?
Well, because I grew up a country girl. You're right. I probably wouldn't be able to. But a good therapist could probably go, this one looks like there's a couple fuses that might be ready to ignite.
But also, like, what if they were highly skilled manipulators? Like, that slipped by too. So.
It's so scary. It's so scary. But yeah, like I will
say if you go through Alabama, at least, APAC is a great resource because they have free counseling. They have monthly support groups, which me and my co-host go to every month, and we love it. I don't have a ton of problems with my granddaughter at the moment. Like, there's not a ton of behavior problems.
Yeah, she's super sweet.
She is
and personable too.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. The biggest problem we have is just her being a raging bitch. But she's also like
a hormonal teenager.
Well, she's 10, but yeah, she's a hormonal 10-year-old who's like a year and a half into getting her period. So she's like, I can forgive a lot of it. So
yeah. Oh yeah, I had 2 sisters, and
so. But APAC is great. They also have a free yearly summer camp, a sleepaway camp you can go to. So it's
the whole family or just the child?
Just the kids, and it's like 13 or 12 and up, I think.
So there's a lot of resources out here. I mean,
I would say be forewarned, though, it is incredibly isolating because they'll deal with shit you never thought you could understand or cope with. And people with biological children who don't deal with kind of stuff will not understand.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I can't believe you would do this to your kid, or I can't believe the kid's that bad. Because a lot of times, because they have so much trauma, everything out of their mouth is a lie because that's how they keep themselves safe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they will lie to everyone to keep themselves safe. And they're usually master manipulators because that's how they keep themselves safe. And so they will manipulate the shit out of you. They will manipulate your relatives, and you will find yourselves isolated if you don't have a good support network.
Yeah.
So you have to find other foster adoptive parents quickly. And
that's what I'm saying. You got to be in a good place, because if you are getting into this for the wrong reasons, if you're just a lonely person who thinks this is going to be your
wants a baby,
best buddy companion, yes, yes, like, especially in the foster and adoptive like system, like you bring a child in and then you get isolated on top of what you were trying to fix. I mean, I think if you haven't been to therapy, like,
well,
I would start there.
And I would also say, if you're going into
look, I keep trying to cover up my toenails because I'm barefoot and I didn't cut them, but
it's all right. I'm covered up because I'm very cold.
I don't think you can see them on the camera.
If you're going into this to fix the kids, I would reevaluate why you're doing this, because you're not there to fix them. You can help them grow, and if they want to fix themselves, fine. But like your role is to keep them safe, healthy, and give them a place of love, even when you want to murder the fuckers, because they just rob.
I know it changed for me when I shifted my thinking to my only job is to prepare and cultivate the best human being that's possible for me to cultivate and prepare for the world out of this human that I'm given. And it took all the burdens of like trying to make my kid like me and trying to be my kid's best friend. And I mean, I adore this kid, but he would rather I just leave him alone most of the time. I'm the annoying one. But yeah, once I realized, like, when he was in trouble, it was just about me trying to put the best grown up possible I could into the world, like into a world that other people would appreciate him being a part of.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, because they're not going to like you. You're not, if your children, your teenage children especially, think you're like the coolest parent in the world and their best friend, y'all have got a fucked up relationship and you're not doing something right.
You got some boundary problems.
And you are raising those little bitches that don't say thank you when boys open the doors for them to go into a store. I hate that. Have you seen the video where the guy opens the door and the mom and daughter go in and just pass him and they keep talking to each other and he runs up and grabs the woman and sits her back outside and closes the door in her face? I was like, fuck her.
I mean, fuck her, but
I hate to open the door for somebody and them not say thank you. I'm a people pleaser. I'm doing this for something. Like, this is an exchange of energy here. And I need to feel like you noticed my good deed. Oh my God, I just did therapy right here on the couch with you. Like, all of that just came.
If my granddaughter was someone, I would be so mad at her. But if a man ever came up, picked her up and took her outside, I would kill that man. I was like, you are not putting your hands on my granddaughter. It was like, no.
No, he did it to the mom.
I don't care. I'm like, you don't touch her.
To the mom.
You don't lay hands on someone because of what they said to you.
You ever been to a gay bar?
Yes.
I've been touched so many places.
Yes. And it's called consent, and then you need to use it, Brian.
It was not consent. Have you been to a gay bar for real?
Yes. But also not a muscle daddy, so I don't get molested a ton.
Well, I'm not a muscle daddy. I've got on 3 girdles and Spanx.
So our dear viewers cannot see it, but there's a naked picture of Brian, right?
Now, back then, in that picture, I was hungry. I was really, really hungry in those pictures.
Now she's just thirsty.
So what do you feel like you have learned the most that you didn't realize you were going to learn in being a parent about yourself? Jason.
I would say patience, but I've been kind of a patient. No, that's not true. ugly sides of my personality come out in the course of parenting. Like parts of me that I am really not proud of. Those are the ones that have been, it was like, oh, I've got a temper that I never really realized I had. And I take it out on my granddaughter when she's being disrespectful or rude. And I was like, oh, there's a probably better way to handle that without me screaming or like pinning her against a wall or like, yeah. So that's the thing I've learned, that, the darker sides of your own personality can come out in moments of stress, and you need to have a good handle on them.
Yeah.
So
How do y'all sit down and talk about those moments? And
yeah, the most recent one for me, especially, was I had gotten my granddaughter's burger. I was like, "What do you want for dinner?" And because Zane and I were going to go have dinner, and she doesn't usually like to come with us, so we'll get her like some fast food, and she can stay at the house by herself. Her uncle was there with her, and so I went. She asked for a cheeseburger, so I went to Burger King. I got her a Whopper with cheese. And I came back and I was waiting for Zane in my office, and I could hear her in the dining room whining and bitching very loudly about how she didn't want a fucking water. And she's like, I just want a kid's cheeseburger. And I stormed in there and screamed at her. I was like, throw that fucking food away, you ungrateful little brat. How dare, I was so screaming at her. And then I felt really guilty about it. And afterwards, after we got back from dinner, I pulled her aside. I was like, listen, it was incredibly inappropriate on my part. I apologize for the name calling. But you really hurt my feelings by saying those things. I had done you a favor. I had gotten you something you wanted, and you acted like that, and it really hurt my feelings. I does not excuse my behavior, so I am sorry. And then she apologized to you for saying that stuff saying that stuff.
that's tough. Like those are the humbling moments
Yeah.
that, yeah, like those moments where you have to I've had to sit down with my son before and say, you know what? I'm learning too.
Yeah.
Like, as I'm teaching you, like, I got to be honest, like, I mess up because I'm learning this whole parenting thing too. Like, you're my only one, like, you're it. And sometimes I get it really wrong. And I remember telling him that one night, and he started crying, and he goes, I get it wrong too.
Oh.
And I'm telling you, he's precious. Like, do you remember those, the wallpaper in the 80s with the cherubs on it?
Yeah.
It's my baby. Just sweet like Jesus.
Oh.
Lowly and mild. He's so sweet. I could eat him up, but he's 19 now, and he's like, would rather me just,
Leave him the fuck alone.
yeah, like, get out of his way.
Yeah, my granddaughter is a sensitive. She's just like me. She's a very sensitive soul. I remember we went to go see. There's a Disney movie that came out a couple of years ago called Onward.
I didn't see it.
So the premise is it was two younger brothers. Their dad died when they were kids, and it's a magical universe.
Disney loves to kill somebody's parents.
So they go on a quest so they can resurrect their dad and say goodbye one last time. And the younger one doesn't really have a ton of memories of his dad, so he sacrifices his time with his dad to let his older brother have it. And I lost my dad a couple of years after the movie came out, and I was just, Clea was in my lap. We had only had her about 3 or 4 months, and we were watching the movie in the theater. I am weeping. I am just boo-hooing and crying, and she's crying her little eyes out too. So we get out of the movie, I carry her off. I'm like, why are you crying? She's like, because you're crying. It's like, but I'm crying.
Oh,
It's pathetic.
yeah,
So,
it's tough. But
yeah.
I just thought it'd be interesting for people to figure out ways to get there if they were really thinking about doing it. I know when I had my child, I didn't know any other gay parents.
Yeah,
But me, it wasn't until Rosie O'Donnell started having kids that all of a sudden there were like camps and cruises, and she was trying to get all the gay parents from across the country. And I'll tell you, back then, there weren't a ton of us. If you were a parent that was gay and had kids, it's because you married a woman and you lied to her, and then you ended up getting a divorce. Right.
No, but I will say that the great thing about our podcast is that I've gotten to meet so many other gay parents. Like I've met several other gay parents. I'm loving it, and I actually want to start a meetup group where we can all start hanging.
Oh, that would be fun.
So,
our kids wouldn't want to go, but
yeah, fuck
fuck them kids. So I want to thank you. Let everybody know where they can find your podcast. If y'all have a website,
The podcast is A Guide to Poor Parenting. We're on Spotify, Amazon.
P-O-U-R, poor?
P-O-O-R.
Oh,
Like,
I thought because you guys drank a lot, it was like,
no, not
poor.
that would be funny, but no, we don't drink that much. We just have one cocktail.
I think I had 2 that day. And that's like 2 of the 4 I've had this year. I was on my way home and I was like, I'm buzzed. I need to go pass out.
No, well, we thought like A Guide to Bad Parenting, but like we couldn't, like there were other podcasts on the name, so poor is in bad, like P-O-O-R. So A Guide to Poor Parenting, it's on all the podcast, wherever you find your podcast. We do have a link tree, but I don't know
Yeah, I have one of those. It's complicated to say out loud.
Yeah.
I just said, go to my TikTok.
Yeah, check us out on TikTok. It's a Guide to Poor Parenting. No, shit, I don't even know what it is now. I know we're on Twitter and at Poor Parent Pod. So everything I put out, I put on Twitter, Facebook, or Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So, and if you are interested in being on the podcast, like Brian was, email me at guidetopoorparenting@gmail.com.
And any parents or gay parents or
Any parents, we take them all.
even straight people, huh?
Well, my co-host is straight, remember? Even though she's a lesbian.
Is she though?
Yes.
I want to thank you, Jason, for being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends and family. Also, check me out on TikTok, Raging Hardham Podcast. You can email me at raginghardhampodcast@gmail.com. If you have like a really cool life story, something you want to share with everybody else, or if you just want to tell me, hey, fucking loser, quit doing this show, that would be the place to do it.
Quit doing this shit.
Can you type it out? That way I can put it in some TikTok videos. I love when they get the hate mail and go over it. It's fun. Thank you, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share with your friends and family. Also, if you have comments, questions, or maybe you want to share your story, you can email me at raginghardonpodcast@gmail.com.